Carl Chidlow from Winning Strategies Washington's is joining us, but first I want to share a fun story about Carl. When I spoke to Carl a few months ago, he told me about this nice fishing trip in Hawaii that he was planning, and he promised his son that if they caught a fish, they would end up mounting it. To his horror, the fish ended up being a 900-pound blue marlin, which we can pull up here. You will see that there's even a shark bite in it when they were reeling in. So let's send our best wishes to Carl, because I know it could not have been cheap or easy to get that back to DC. That's enough floundering around from me. Here's Carl to discuss the fate of the 45L tax credit.
Good morning or good afternoon, depending on when you're viewing this. My name's Carl Chidlow. I'm federal lobbyist for RESNET, and been asked to give an update on some of the tax policies that impact our industry and residential energy policy writ large. So I'll start right now and appreciate everybody's attention. So where do things stand? That is a very good question. The Biden administration started with quite an ambitious agenda. They had to get the pandemic under control and get shots in the arm. So a good first 6 months of the administration was dealing with that and the after effects of January 6th. But fortunately, the Congress came together in a bipartisan fashion and did pass the bipartisan bill, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, which I'll talk a little bit more later. And there was also a rather elongated attempt to put together a package which was known as Build Back Better, or the BBB. You probably saw the news reports about the negotiations regarding that. It started as a $6 trillion idea, got scaled back to 3.5. Ultimately, the House passed a $1.7 trillion bill, but last December, one of the key moderates in the Senate, Senator Joe Manchin, sort of scuttled the whole thing. And so that bill is now sort of, in the back rooms being discussed at a very high level. So let's move on. Let's talk just sort of a refresher of what was in the Build Back Better package and the reason why I'm here today. There was a rather dramatic improvement to the 45L tax credit, which RESNET had extended, or we had expended some political capital on. There was adjustments to the 25C tax credit and two very ambitious new incentives for existing home residential retrofit. The 45L proposal that again did pass the House had a 10-year lifespan instead of a 1-year policy. So it would have, if enacted back in December, it would have been through 2031. Builders would have gotten an upgrade in terms of the incentive from $2,000 to $2,500, but the homes had to be built to the Energy Star certifications. And then homes that were net zero ready, according to DOE standards, would get a $5,000 credit. So all very good ideas, and perhaps they can still come to fruition. And how did 45L get to this revised state? As I mentioned, RESNET has been up on the Hill for almost a decade, speaking to members of the Senate Finance Committee, the House Ways and Means Committee, the tax writing committees. And ultimately, once the Build Back Better proposal was in its full state of review, we endeavored upon the Ways and Means Committee to ask and to engage with the Department of Energy. Over the years, there had been some, let's say, unscrupulous individuals in the industry who were proposing to qualify folks for the 45L credit, but perhaps not using the same stringent standards that was Congress's intent when they first passed the tax provision. So we asked the tax writing committees to engage with the Department of Energy directly and get what's called technical assistance. We thought that would help clear up any of the loose ends, so to speak, in the enforcement, and sort of help modernize the credit, and obviously make it easy on the federal government for enforcement. We also pushed very vigorously over several years for a multi-year credit. We were very pleased that 10 years was settled upon. And as I mentioned before, we were trying to figure out a way without writing the bill ourselves to prevent waste, fraud, and abuse, which would ultimately undermine the entire proposal. So luckily, Congress did what we asked, not necessarily because we asked, but we did get confirmation from the Department of Energy that both the House and the Senate did contact them and engaged in a way to craft the bill in such a way to, clean up the potential fraud. 25C also got a major overhaul. We were less involved in that in terms of advocacy, but it did, create multi-year opportunities for homeowners to do small, retrofits to their homes. And, as you know, the previous or current policy only allows you to, do one modification and take the credit. So this, I think, will allow homeowners to really work on their homes in absence of a deep retrofit. Some of the specifics on the 25C version, again, that passed the House. It's not the law of the land currently, but the specifics are here. It raised the lifetime cap and the per item limitation. It changed the eligibility criteria for some of the different methodologies. And perhaps more importantly for our industry, it allowed this credit to be used to conduct a home energy audit, which is fantastic. So we are very much rooting for this and 45L to be included in a future package. And let me get to the specifics of that and how it might happen in the coming slides. Also, in the Build Back Better package, there was a policy, again, very supportive of, called the Homes Act. This was a proposal that Congressman Peter Welch and Congressman David McKinley of West Virginia had been promoting for many years. We did make some suggestions on the final language, and ultimately what passed the House was practically a $6 billion pot of money that could be granted to state energy offices. It would be a competitive grant. It would provide over $350 million for contractor training, but also, allow the state energy offices to give pretty robust retrofits to individual homeowners. And we had argued that this should be administered at the state level because every state is different, as opposed to being, taken over by the folks at DOE headquarters. We just felt it would be more nimble in this way, and it would allow the states to, sort of federalize it in such a way that it could fit to the particular codes and the environment and economics of their state. So this was also in the Build Back Better package, the Homes Act. And I think I went through some of the specifics already, but it would basically create a $6 billion grant program for the state energy offices. The homeowners who took advantage of this program, if they achieved a 20% retrofit energy savings, they could get a $2,500 rebate. Deep retrofits of a 40% energy savings could get $4,000. Like I mentioned, $6 billion over 6 years, historic amount of investment. And as I mentioned, we thought it should be decentralized and run out of the state energy offices. And I will get to that point in a minute. I think this is a great opportunity, regardless of Build Back Better being passed or passed in the near future, for RESNET members to contact their state energy offices and refresh those conversations, now. Let's go to the next slide here. Okay, so The Build Back Better package obviously passed the House, did not pass the Senate, um, but there are rumors and facts that both Joe Manchin, the Speaker, Senator Schumer, and others are, working on sort of a scaled down version of the Build Back Better, and we may never hear the term Build Back Better ever again. It may be rebranded, and perhaps it should, but it's going to be probably much smaller than the 1.7 trillion that passed the House. Just to give you some perspective, the of that 1.7 trillion, roughly a third of these new investments were targeted towards climate, whether it's tax credits for green renewable energy efficiency or grid modernization. I mean, it was a really historic effort to address our climate challenges. And I will just sort of speak, obviously, we're coming up on a midterm election this November. The Democrats are probably worried and should be that they could lose their majorities in the House and Senate. Biden will obviously still be the president. It's a 4-year term, but their opportunity, the Democrats' opportunity to pass a historic climate package is this year before the elections. So the question is, can the moderates, such as Joe Manchin, and the progressives who want the Build Back Better or version 2.0 to be more aggressive, can people sort of swallow their pride and come to a consensus on the art of the possible before November? Because once Republicans take control, and this is not meant to be a partisan statement, the chance that a multi-billion, multi-trillion-dollar climate package coming together under Republican control of Congress is slim. So the time is now. Who, what, where, and when? As mentioned, Senator Manchin, but others, not just him, are working behind closed doors. I don't think we're going to see this debated in the press as it was during Build Back Better. I think this is going to be done in a very small circle, and these conversations are going on now, and those have been verified. I do believe that there have been a couple of events, global events, that have paused these negotiations. One is obviously the war in Ukraine, which has, in a lot of ways, refocused people's attention on the need for renewables and energy efficiency, because Russia controls the gas flow to most of Western Europe. We've got oil shock disruptions. So, modernizing our energy use globally is, again, front and center. And I do believe that there is a genuine consensus that the United States has done some great things, but can do a lot more to make us energy independent and less reliable on carbon-based fuel sources. So the timing has also been disrupted by the Supreme Court nominee and the clock that had to, burn in the Senate. But right now, there's probably this month, May and June, that folks can get together and take the pieces off the cutting room floor, so to speak, and stitch together what I predict will be a very climate-focused package. Some of the social spending initiatives may hitch a ride, but I do believe the events in Ukraine have focused people's attention on energy distribution and use. And and I do think Joe Manchin has publicly said and privately that he is not necessarily opposed to renewables. He just doesn't want to see some of the legacy energy provisions for coal and natural gas and oil. He just doesn't want those to be, pushed to the side in an effort to ramp up our incentives for green technology. So again, progressives are going to have to swallow what they may consider a bitter pill, but it is Manchin's and a few others behind him. It's their ball game right now. So I do believe the door is still open. I do believe we'll see something emerge, and the Democrats will have to use this so-called reconciliation budgetary tactic to get it passed, because it'll only pass with Democratic votes, if at all. But the door is not completely shut, and conversations are going on right now. So let's get to some good news, because the crestfall of the Build Back Better package was disappointing for most, I'm sure. But there was a really substantial effort in the infrastructure bill that I mentioned earlier. It's known as the IIJA, Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. This was passed with 17 Republican votes in the Senate and several dozen Republican votes in the House. And tucked within this package was a $40 million new grant opportunity, again, for state energy offices to aid in workforce development for energy auditors. So the law is passed. The president signed it. This is going to happen. Unfortunately, the DOE, Department of Energy, they have posted on it. If you click on that blue icon, maybe not right now, but when this is uploaded later, you can go to the page on the DOE website that gives you the specifics. The criteria and eligibility is supposed to come out this quarter, so sometime before June 30th. But as I mentioned earlier, now is the time for folks to contact their state energy offices and position for this flow of money. So the final slide is contact your state energy office today. $40 million spread out over 50 states and territories. You can do the math, but it's a historic amount of money for workforce development. And the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So, we hope that you can engage with your state legislators, whoever you may know, contacts you have at the state energy office, and let them know that you are interested in participating in this workforce development effort. You'd be happy to consult, provide subject matter expertise, because each state is going to construct this in their own way. So lining yourself up, volunteering for stakeholder engagement at the state level is really a great course of action, because we can collectively as RESNET really make an impact and make sure that you as the citizen of that state get a chance to participate. If Build Back Better does pass, there's going to be a lot more than this 40 million, as I mentioned earlier, and there's going to be, again, with the package of Build Back Better and the Homes Act, there's going to be billions of dollars available for folks to conduct retrofits on their homes. So let's plan for the fact that it may occur, but even if Build Back Better comes back in a slightly scaled back fashion, engagement with your state energy office now is something you can really do to impact the outcome. Just a few more thoughts on where things are politically. As I mentioned, we have a midterm election coming up. Every member of Congress is up. There's redistricting going on, which is changing congressional boundaries. So there's a lot of uncertainty, but the Democrats are extremely motivated to put their imprint on energy policy for the next decade. And I do believe something will come together in the months immediately following this presentation. And given when this presentation may be viewed, some of these things that I'm talking about may have already occurred. The bill may be released, the draft. But it is going to take a while for Congress to move anything through reconciliation. So it's a very, very exciting time. The president and his administration are extremely focused on climate, and now is the opportunity to engage at the state level and help hopefully draw down some of these federal funds that are flowing through the infrastructure bill or possibly the version 2.0 of Build Back Better. So with that, I wish I could be available to answer your questions. Um, I think my information will be made available by ResNet if you want to send me an email following this presentation. I'm fairly good at following up on those. And in the future, Congress will be reopening for normal business. I've talked to the executive director of ResNet, inviting folks to come to Washington, D.C. to meet their members. We're happy to organize these visits. We can do them virtually. So I guess this is sort of a plea to encourage you to engage now with the state energy offices and try to make yourself available, if you're willing, for engagement on the federal side. You know, so that's where we are. I appreciate the opportunity to address you today. I wish we could all be in person. And with that, I leave it up to you to, follow up with questions. And I really appreciate your time. Thank you.